Hey Excelers, in this video I'm going to show you how you can conditionally format rows with a single or multiple criteria, and you also have a format rows count. So we've got a data set here and it relates to hotel rooms in different cities around the world and what the price is for that hotel room and what the review score is left by people who stayed at the hotel, and the score is between 0 to 100. So the conditional formatting of the rows is set up so that it's linked to three separate cells for three separate criteria. The first criteria for the first cell is this drop down in B4. You click on this drop down, you have all the cities, and if I choose Rio de Janeiro, the conditional formatting of the rows adjusts, so it's only highlighting the Rio de Janeiro rows. And the other criteria, you've got a review score lower and a review score higher. So in this case, we've got not just Rio de Janeiro hotel room, but also with a review score between 90 and 98. So we can adjust the highest score to 92 here. Then the conditional formatting adjusts, so then it's only highlighting those rows that meet all three criteria, and it's all fully dynamic. On top of all this, I also have a formula here which counts the number of rows that are affected. So those rows that are highlighted meeting the conditional formatting rules is also displayed in terms of the count. So not only you can see the highlighted rows, but you can also see a count. And I'll show you how it's all done next. In this first example, we want to conditionally format certain rows of this dataset so that it responds to the value that it selects from this dropdown in cell B4. In cell B4, you got the unique values of the city, and that is based on the city column of the dataset. So what we need to do first is we need to select the first cell containing the data, not the header row, and then we press Control Shift down and Control Shift across. And what that will do is it's going to select the entire dataset except the header. Then on the ribbon, we click on Home, then we click on the conditional formatting tool, then we click New Rule. Then for the rule type, we choose this one, use a formula to determine which cell to format. And then in the formula bar, we type this equals $C8 equals, then press the button here, and then select the cell containing the drop down value, which is cell B4. So we choose C8 because C is the column that contains the city values that we want to check against B4, which is the drop down value cell. And for C8, we have to make sure that the column is absolute and the row is relative for this conditional format to work. Then when you click on format, then we choose the formatting, what we want. So for the font, we're going to choose bold, and we're going to choose white font for the color. And for the fill, we're going to choose green. And then we can choose, click on OK, and click on OK. So as you can see, all the rows containing the city of Sydney are highlighted, the entire row. And that directly depends on the value selected from the drop down. If you selected another city, for example, let's select Istanbul, then the Istanbul ones, the rows are going to be selected. Let's choose another city, Hong Kong. The Hong Kong ones are selected. The other thing is I've also created a formula here, and what that does is it counts the number of rows that are formatted that meets the criteria, the single criteria. And so for this one, what we've got is we've got a count ifs formula, and then the table itself is called, if I click on the design of the contact center in the menu, this table is called table dataset1. And to create the formula for the format rows, what we do is we use the count ifs formula. Then if I just delete this, and then you select the table again, so it's going to be count ifs. So we choose a criteria range. For criteria range, we just type in the table name, TBL, and in this case it's dataset1, table dataset1. And then you press square brackets, then it gives you a list of all the fields within the table. So we want city field, and then close it with the square brackets. And then for the criteria, it's going to be cell B4. Click on the tick, and that will give you the number of rows affected. So whatever rows are highlighted will be reflected in terms of the number of formatted rows. If I went and chose another city, for example, Sydney, with 24 rows affected. In this next example, we want to conditionally format the rows of this dataset so that it responds to three different criteria in three different cells. So the first criteria, as before, is in cell B4, which is the drop-down of city values, unique values. The second criteria is in cell E3, which is the review score lower, and cell E4 has the third criteria, which is review score higher. These relate to percentages, but for the purposes of the conditioning formatting, then we want to store this as a whole number. And the dataset is actually stored as a table, and I've called it table dataset 2. So we need to, as before, highlight the entire dataset first for the first step, except the header row. If you look at this mouse, you see that it's a white cross. If you move it onto the table, then move it onto the top left corner, then you'll see it becoming a black arrow. And move it so that it becomes a diagonal black arrow. And when it gets to that black arrow, click on it. So what that does is it automatically highlights the entire dataset, the entire table, except the header row, which is what we want for conditional formatting to work. Next, we go into the Home tab, we go into Conditional Formatting, New Rule, and then use a formula. So before typing the formula for the conditional formatting, I'm just going to go through the columns, the relevant columns for the formatting. The first column is city, and we're going to make sure that the conditional formatting formula has the column C as absolute and the row as relative, and that's going to be looking at each row for this city column, and it's going to be looking at the value selected in cell B4. And then for the review score, which is in column F, that has to be column F has to be absolute and the row has to be relative, and it's going to be comparing the lower bound and the higher bound values for the review score. Okay, so we type the conditional formatting like this, equals, and then we need an AND formula, open brackets, then we need a dollar sign, and we want column C for city, and we want to put row as relative, and the number that we put for row relative is row 8, which is the first data row of the table. Then we want it to equal the first criteria, so click on this button there, cell B4, then comma, then the next criteria is going to be review score, so it's going to be column F, again column absolute, row relative, has to be greater than equal to cell E3, which is review score lower, again, so with this time we're still referring to column F for the review score, absolute column F, row relative, less than equal to cell E4, and then finish off the formula with a rounded bracket. So that finishes off the formula. Next, we want to set the what kind of conditional formatting needs to be applied for each row that meets all three criteria. Click on Format. We want it to be font bold, the color to be white, and we want the fill to be green as before. Click on OK. Click on OK again. So as you can see, all rows that meet all three criteria are highlighted and all the others are not highlighted, which is what we want. So let's have a look at this first highlighted row. Example, yeah, matching. And the review score 95. Is that between the range E3 and E4? Yes, it is. And so are all the others. So this is dynamic. So that if you change the city to this time Rio de Janeiro, it's now highlighting the Rio de Janeiro rows and for the range of values for the review score. Let's change the review score to a larger range, a wider range, and let's make that to 85, so 80. So now you can see all new rows which meet the new criteria are highlighted automatically. It's all dynamic. The next thing and the final thing I need to show you is the format rows formula. So I've got the format rows formula here in cell G4. I've got a comment as well. I'm going to unhide the comment, show the comment. So this is based on the COUNTIFs formula. So the COUNTIFs formula, what the criteria is you've got criteria range. Criteria range in this case is going to be table dataset 2 in this case, and it's going to be the city column. and that's going to be relating to B4 as before. And then the second criteria second criteria range is going to be the review score, and the criteria is going to be greater than equal to E3, and the table data set 2 for review score less than equal to E4. And you notice that in the formulas for the greater than equal, we put this in quotes, greater than E3, cell E3, and then for the final criteria in quotes again, less than equal to, and E4. Thanks for watching, and watch out for my next video.